Streaming now on IWTV. Action Wrestling. Check our schedule for all upcoming Action Wrestling events scheduled to stream live on IWTV. Watch over 90 Action Wrestling shows on demand anytime, featuring AC Mack, Adam Priest, Alex Kane, Cruel, and more.
Hello and welcome to the latest Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Paz from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the doctor himself, Dr. Lavie. Lavie Margolin. What's going on today, Lavie? How you doing?
Hey, John. Doing okay. Managing the storm and whatever, seasonal conditions we have here in the Northeast, but really a lot of the U.S. This week. But a pleasure as rarefied air to have a guest back for the third time. I think we only have about 5 or 6 guests that have achieved this milestone. So unlocked today. So glad to welcome back Romy Glazer for the third time. Of course, a senior sports tech and media operator. Romy, welcome back.
What's up, guys? How's it going? Glad to be here, man. 3 times. I didn't even realize, but that makes it. Here we are.
Thank you for coming back. So let's just hit it off. Let's hit the high spot here. What is the latest in the sports media sponsorship, and what does that have to do with wrestling? And I think it does have something to do with wrestling.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of the backstory. So when I was on with you guys, when's the last time? I was trying to think of the last time we spoke. Had to be July. It was around Slammiversary, I think. Right? We were talking about attendance numbers way back.
Yep.
A lot's changed since then, but one of the things that, we covered off on while I was on the show, and we were talking about everything, which is great in the business. I had this concept in my head that I was like, hey, I'm going to help wrestlers make more money. Like, I want to be helpful somehow, kind of coming out of TNA and doing what we're doing. And at the time, I had launched this web app that was primarily concerned with like helping wrestlers get bookings. And so, it was, online. Wrestlers could sign up. We had worked with the promotions, and then it was kind of like a search engine, like who's available when, what kind of style they are, and do the whole thing. So I launched it, and we had a little bit of success. Like, I had a handful of people sign up, and had conversations with the promoters, as you do, to try and figure out, how it could be best used. And I found out pretty quickly that, like, I don't know if the booking situation is broken. There's a lot of promotions out there, but there's not so many that they're booking constantly. They're looking for new talent. We had conversations. Some of them like to use cash when they pay wrestlers, blah, 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 blah. So basically it was one of those things where I was like, okay, great. Well, let's let it run and just kind of sit there and figure out what's next. And so a couple weeks back, was on Instagram, doom scrolling as we all do. We're on Twitter, we're doing our thing. Or X, excuse me. And, one of the wrestlers, Jordan Grace, friend of the show here, posted, she was promoting her like subscriptions on Instagram. And I looked at her following and said, oh my gosh, you have 650,000 followers on Instagram. And when she screenshotted this thing, it said that she had 31 million views over the course of the last month, like on her Instagram. It's like 40 times the amount of followers that she had like viewed her content over the course of the last month. And, I like within context, like 4 months of that is a Super Bowl ad, which is crazy. So, I was just like, I shot her a note and said something like, I hope your manager is like working hard for you because those are amazing numbers. And we just had a funny back and forth, just DMs. I worked with her at TNA, so we have a little bit of a relationship. She's WWE now. Little bit of back and forth. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if brands actually know the reach of pro wrestlers. Because I'm not sure they do. Like, I'm shocked. There's a guy that does a podcast, and he's kind of a media guy. Kazim also did the same thing, posted his following, and it was something like 100x his followers. AJ Francis does this a lot too. So I kind of was like, maybe this is the interesting next iteration of, what this app was going to be. So I turned it into an index. And so right now we're tracking 300 wrestlers across all different promotions. So you've got, some of the WWE folks, NXT, you've got TNA, you've got JCW, you've got OVW, just all of them, MLW, all those people. And I set it up as like kind of a search engine. So it's at booknitro.com. You can go on there, and it's a really easy search engine to search for the wrestler you're looking for. You can see what the reach is, and then links to their social media accounts. So Instagram, X, and TikTok, if they have it. So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that's so interesting because I know you put it on LinkedIn, but it's so true. Like, why are pro wrestlers the most undervalued, quote unquote, media assets in sports? Why is that, though? Because obviously they're undervalued. Some people are getting 100x of what their follower. So why is it they're kind of being undercounted or undervalued a little bit here?
Totally. And so that's the big sort of question of the day, because, I think, if we were to have had this podcast, a bunch of years ago, and we were to think about this back in like the early 2000s or 2010s or whatever, like you would say, brands are a little worried to get in because it's combat sports, or, or they don't think that the fans have the spending, ability, or whatever it is. Like, what is it? Conrad Thompson and those guys will talk about it ad nauseum about, how hard it was to sell ads for WCW or WWF back in the day. But that's kind of changed now. I mean, like, you see the news and it's like the WrestleMania tickets. Like, what's the get-in price now to get into WrestleMania in Vegas?
$800 or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm priced out, like, and it's like I think it's changed. Like, live events are, the ticket prices keep going up. Like, even the get-in game, like to try and get into a regular season game for the Knicks or the Nets, it's like $100.
Yeah.
And so, but I think pro wrestling is, in that same world. And so, I feel like maybe the fans themselves have, aged up, or, or we're just maybe seeing the power of the fan. So, it's kind of the question. I don't have a good answer, but it was like, I wonder if there's a way to make it, make this following more visible and talk about it more, because I think maybe some brands are missing it.
It's just crazy, right? MJF has like a huge following as well, like crazy compared to how many people are following him, but how many people are looking and going after his content.
100%. And so here's where it gets kind of fun. So I built out the index and was like, okay, let's just index people, and then brands could look at it. We talk about it enough. It's great. But one of the things that kind of fell out of it as I was working on it was, I wonder if there's a way to figure out who's rising the fastest. So, we know like Roman Reigns has 20 million followers, like, and he, It's crazy, right? So if Roman Reigns goes up 100 more people, like, it's like a drop in the bucket for him. And granted, amazing spokesperson, great person. But like, I wonder if there's if I'm tracking it week to week, are we going to be able to see which wrestlers actually have the most heat behind them? And so you said MJF, so that was really interesting. So the first time I did this maybe 3 weeks ago, ran the update, and it was like, who are the top 2 wrestlers that had the most heat behind them with the most followers? Like, it was MJF and Brody King because of what happened in the ring, right? Yep. And I was like, oh, no kidding. So every week this thing runs on Monday because there's not really, I don't think there's a lot that changes, Monday to Tuesday, but Monday to Monday is a little different. So, it'll update every week, and it'll spit out, who's trending on the back end of, based on their followings on social.
Love that. I saw also Blake Monroe had a big surge, right? Is she like one of the most popular as far as connecting and surging like that?
Yeah, so she's definitely jumping a lot. So the way I've been looking at it is I've been kind of like looking at, who's gotten the most followers as a total, and then who's got the most new followers based on how big their account is now. And so like, Blake tearing it up, she's great. What a star. But one I thought was really interesting this week, and this is like the second week I've run it through, is Steve Macklin, who showed up on both. He got more followers, in the top 10 than anybody else. And it was compared to his current base, which is a lot lower than Blake Monroe's. He was also in the top 10 of that. So it was like, oh, this storyline that he's got where, he got the fired briefcase and now he's kind of gone rogue, at TNA, and he's maybe challenging for the title. I don't know. Is he an employee? Who knows? And he's got his podcast. So, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder, if we could look deeper into, what's up with him.
That's so fascinating because it's almost like if they're in a good storyline and people are intrigued by it, they'll automatically kind of go to the social media, or maybe vice versa. Maybe they're intrigued by it from the social media. Maybe they'll watch the show.
Exactly. And so, so I keeping track of that every week, and like, I'm going to post it on Twitter, like who are the top 5 people that jumped, total and according to their following. But, once you scratch the surface, John and Lavie, it's really funny. It's like, you can also do a lot more cool stuff kind of beyond that too. So I've also got it tied to the promotions. So like, Steve Macklin is tied to TNA. Blake Monroe is tied to NXT currently. I've got the people tied to GCW. And if you kind of see who's growing and who's kind of like gaining and losing, you can also start to figure out the health of the promotions a little bit, or at least what promotions are trending. And so, I don't have a ton of that data yet because it's just, it's early. But in a few weeks, we could probably say, hey, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, like JCW, most of their people gained followers this week. So, 80% of them are up. So what's going on over there? And so it's kind of another piece.
Love that. Lavie, I know you love Book Nitro. So
Yes,
what do you
for
have?
sure. First, I wanted to share, as you were talking about Jordan Grace. I'm not sure if you saw it. I think it was a tweet that she shared a few weeks ago where she had sold something on Facebook Marketplace, and her husband had to go like meet this person, and like they made $10, and he's like risking my life for $10,
Yeah. Well, again, the joke is like, undervalued. And also like the side of it too, maybe as, we were just talking about, the benefits here. Like, okay, so let's say you work with Jordan Grace, you probably have to run through WWE or, whatever it is now. That's great. Like if she's posting on her socials, you'll probably get Gresham. Like you'll probably get some additional stars. Like it's, they're living in this really cool world that, is maybe higher value than like if you sign up with an influencer, who's, just doing something else.
Yeah, and on the Book of Nitro, as you shared with me, like, and as you talked about, it's still a bit of a work in progress in terms. I found like the promotional index like really interesting. Now, this is just following wrestlers, right? Because when I look about it, Juggalo, Fourth Rope, NWA, right? Like, if you were to connect it to the promoters, they have like their own huge followings, but that's more like music related. Like, is that like sussed out?
So right now it's just wrestlers. But again, as I start to learn more and like, again, as people reach out and we talk about it, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is like, if, and I'm sure WWE has an amazing ad sales machine, like the Dude Wipes thing that happened recently with Dominic Mysterio. Great. But for somebody else, like, the whole bundling of the promotion with the wrestlers that work there is where the magic really happens. So, Dude Wipes could have done a deal with Dominic on their own, which probably would have been great. But now they have him on his ring gear and they'll have him at ringside. And so, the connection there makes sense. And so what I don't know is whether or not some of these promotions actually have the data, to say, hey, TNA's got this many followers on social media, and our roster also has this many followers. Here's the total, and what it might cost to do a big deal with a brand. So I don't know yet.
Yeah. And interesting is you're talking about the individual wrestlers to see like who breaks out. It's like you said, it's easiest to like show growth when you're not as well known. Like Mr. Elegance, I think Was that the young man with the cape that was kind of like shaking back and forth until he was revealed, and like no fault of his own, but like people didn't enjoy that segment that much, but people weren't aware of him before, and then suddenly he's growing, so it just gives you an opportunity.
For sure. Yeah, he got roasted, but you know what? It's working. Like that's that's kind of the takeaway, at least this past week.
So like you mentioned, I think you're hitting on all the points that we have notes on. With the dude wipes, it's really interesting in that it's also like I think the company and the performer has to sort of like have the confidence to take on some of these brands that being from the podcast world sort of emerged a little bit from a down market perspective, or if you think about like the UFC and that like early Zuffa days and the type of things that were on the shorts and everything like that. So as somebody that's really familiar with brands, like how do you suss out like sort of like, is this the type of brand that fits our image? What's the trade-off worth? Like, could this hurt us in terms of getting more marquee brands? Like what's that like?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think when you're dealing with, let's say, performers or talent or whoever it is, and I have a lot more maybe direct access to some of the collegiate athletes that I've worked with in the past. It's got to be, is it authentic to them, first, and then also does it kind of fit the trajectory of where they're trying to go. So I can maybe speak again, as I think about like where TNA is at, as I'm thinking specifically, like they've got that big partnership with Bioflex, and it's the injury report, and it's got kind of that NFL films piece behind it, because they, the new producer, he's not really new anymore, George, worked on NFL films and, with NFL background. So, the positioning, made a lot of sense because they wanted to get some, performance recovery partner, and kind of show that these are athletes. And so like that was kind of one of the ways that partnership, I can imagine the conversation went. But yeah, it's really, it's like, what's the strategy? Like, where you're headed, and then is it authentic, to your brand? But I mean, I think it's all kind of loose, Lavie. Like, sometimes I don't want to say inauthentic, but the sort of unexpected partnerships are also where it's really fun. Like when we did the Vita Coco collaboration, like backstage, which is like, why are wrestlers getting their hair, like why are all the wrestlers' hair always wet? And it was basically they were pouring Vita Coco on their heads, wink wink. Like nobody, I don't think that would have been a brand we probably would have assumed that would have been a pro wrestling collaboration, but it was fun enough to get a lot of engagement because it was unexpected. So
yeah, no, actually it's funny because the next thing I was going to ask was about Vita Coco, because you had like a wonderful case study about that. So I'd love to like learn more about why that process worked and like why that was an ideal scenario.
yeah, I mean, great brand, great people. I think when we spoke with them, and so by the way, when I say we, I think that was so that was Rob Kligman. That was Rob Kligman's deal originally. Like he made the intro, and when we first met the team over there, they're number one. They're trying to do something that kind of breaks out. That's really interesting. So I don't know if you had a chance, like Lavie, when you were here, like in the marathon was recently. Like one of the clients that we worked with wore the Vita Coco suit running like in the New York Marathon. Like I think he ran the whole thing, and I remember being like, "Was that Brandon? Like, what is that?" Like, and you yell at him. But so they want to do these things that kind of help them stand out in the market. But on the other side, they're positioning themselves, as having a lot of electrolytes and being a good sports drink and having all these great benefits. So, they're aligning themselves in sports, but also, it's coconut water. So it's healthy for you. And it's moisturizing for your hair. And so, when we had the first conversation, we were like, what could we do? And, the conversation was like, why is everyone's hair so wet? And what if it was Vita Coco? That's basically it, and so then, we put together some creative that was supposed to be maybe not super high produced, like just an iPhone in the back just to like make it look like a TikTok, and kind of went from there.
So I think something that's certainly not unique to wrestling, but whenever you utilize people or work with them, collaborate, they're people, so they can make mistakes, sometimes big mistakes, sometimes it's their own fault. So for example, just in the Vita Coco, without naming the name, one of the people in your image just later, she was canceled. So what if something like that happens while the campaign is ongoing? Like, how do you manage that? Is there sort of like that expectation of like, this isn't the first time in the world this has happened, so this is what we're going to do, and kind of like keep going?
It's a really good question. It's really case by case on a lot of this stuff. Like, you want to make sure that the brand is protected, always. And so, if there was sort of, that kind of gets into that like whole crisis PR type stuff where, hey, we need to kind of get together and have a conversation about it. And then kind of decide next steps. And so I say it's almost case by case, right? In a lot of cases, maybe it depends if the ad buy is done, what's locked, and what maybe you can, take to the side while you investigate a little bit more. But I think, on that side, it's definitely case by case. There's not really, and that's a really, weird answer to give, but, you don't immediately go pull stuff down, but at the same time, you also need to be very respectful and smart about, hey, this happened. What's the impact going to be on the brand? Because, obviously you want to work with them again, and you don't want the brand to get tarnished. So yeah, case by case.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, like, without getting too much in the weed, I think, like, in terms of the way wrestlers are treated and like who's canceled and who's not, it's very much on like a case by case basis. And you can be like, this person, nobody says anything bad about it, and like, they have all these allegations against them, and then this person immediately, everyone's like, just, we don't want anything to do with you. I guess that's life, right? Certain complexity of
Yeah.
things.
I mean, and I think, like up front, when you're kind of, working with talent or performers and brands, we're also kind of agreeing, okay, hey, here's who's going to be in the creative, and there's, an approval process. And so everyone can kind of take a look and go, hey, is this the person we want that reflects our brand? So it's, there's definitely like, before you actually get into a campaign itself, there's definitely a approval process that you discuss, and people are able to kind of research who they're going to be working with, because you never want that to happen. So it's that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Now, a couple months into the Blacksmith AEW deal, what were your expectations for it, and how do you feel it's been like rolling out so far?
Love Blacksmith. I think we've talked about this before. Like, I'm really happy that Alan was able to get the deal with AEW done. Like, and by the way, he's like quietly taking over professional wrestling. It seems like because there's the New Japan deal, there's the TNA deal, and now he's got an AEW deal. There might be one or two more, in his groups, but, I'm really happy for him to kind of get it done. He was talking about it, quietly when we were going to try and maybe get something done. What was that, last year? So, I think it's natural. Like he works with a lot of the wrestlers as it is. And, if the brand is kind of, they want to kind of get a little bit of the rub of his unique, culture collab that he's got going on in like the football market in the UK. Makes sense. So like, yeah, pretty happy with it. I don't know if the actual, like, have the pieces rolled out yet? Like, I'm gonna look while I talk to you guys.
Not that I'm aware.
Yeah, so I think it's probably a little, like they're still probably in production with it. But we know the announcement happened. So
If there's still time and I could give them any advice, make wrestling shirts that aren't black. Make it a
Yes.
comfortable fabric, like 100% cotton. Let it breathe. I'm always so disappointed whenever I get a wrestling shirt. I like impulse buy, and I'm just like, I can't even wear this. Like I bought, there was one of those like flash deals, AEW things, and
Yeah.
I got it. And I was just like, this is just too hot and it's not comfortable.
We need to 100% cotton. We got to come back around on that stuff. Like
Yeah.
too much dry fit in this world.
I think it was like at first years ago, we were just happy that they were making wrestling shirts, but then like it just kind of stuck there. So before I turn over to John, just wanted to get your reflection on TNA, on AMC. Like, it was such a wild ride, especially like in the media, like even the ratings being messed up the first week, the announcement, and then it actually growing now to a different plateau. Like, what have you thought about it all?
I mean, positive note, like, are we surprised? And I'd say like, not really. Like the roster that they have, the writing that they have. I know it's, people, have talked about it back and forth, on the internet. It's great, like very happy for everybody. I mean, they've needed a new platform for years. And I think kind of building up some of that heat, like it's the next natural iteration, right? And I mean, the show's been pretty good lately. I've caught I'd say maybe half since the premiere, like I turned it on and watch a little bit and do the thing. But yeah, really happy. I mean, I think that the talent deserves it. They're all really smart. And I think TNA has always kind of been the place where you can kind of go and have a little bit more creative freedom. And so like, it's, a testament to those guys. Like, it's amazing.
So as far as you and Book Nitro and everything, where can everybody kind of find and follow you and find Book Nitro?
Yeah. So the website, booknitro.com. And I'm working on new features. Take a look, like just, pop into the index. If anything, it might also just be a really easy way if you're thinking about a wrestler and you want to figure out where their Instagram account is. Like, go to the site, look them up, and just it's an index. Maybe we'll throw YouTube links in there too, or or merch links later, so it's a search engine. But yeah, booknitro.com is the site for the index. And then me, I'm on Twitter, Romy Glazer, in like all one word, lowercase, and that's at LinkedIn. That's at X. That's at Instagram. We're hanging out. We're having fun.
Anybody surprised you on there, just as far as the index, and anybody stick out like, wow, I can't believe that?
Yeah. So one of the fun things, and again, like the promotion index is done, but it updates every Monday. So I've only had one update. So, I'm like, before I actually talk about that, I want to wait, a week or two. JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, in this social, pulse promotion index, 70% of their people in the past week, grew versus stayed stagnant or went down. And, so they are growing faster. And there's one guy, and his name is Facade. And I have not watched JCW yet, but seeing that, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm missing anything. Because he was also on the fastest movers list. And so, it's kind of a smaller following versus some of the, big WWE people, but he's got a little heat behind him. So I'm like, I wonder what's going on over at JCW. So that surprised me.
Yeah, he's been one of the good underground kind of indie talents for years, for many, many years, at least decade plus, really. But it's good to see that he's on the rise.
Yeah, love it. And I'm sure, there's interest because Vince Russo came back and he's helping them out a little bit. And, as a Detroiter, we got to love the clowns, man. ICP, let's go.
Yes.
Juggalos. So, I just get my face paint after I talk to you guys. But, so.
Awesome. Everybody needs to get out there and look up Book Nitro for many different reasons, but definitely maybe even for JCP or, ICP and JCW. So definitely. Romy, thank you so much for all the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Great to see you guys. Maybe at some point we'll go 4-time.
Yes.
For sure. Thanks so much, Romy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Later, guys.
Right.
Lavie, let's talk a little bit about the news. Let's go to a AAA, but not only AAA. Let's go AAA in the USA. Is there more plans for maybe a little bit of an expansion as far as AAA is concerned?
Yeah, that's what the scuttlebutt is here early in April, maybe in Texas, which is interesting, right? Because they already have a lot going on with WrestleMania, but it just seems like a natural fit and a natural extension for AAA. You know, it's such a varied talent roster that obviously for the big shows they supplement with WWE, but I think like booked right, AAA can really garner some interest. It's a very kid friendly show. I know at TKO they're not big on house shows, but this is a different brand, and it's a way of potentially sort of extending the brand in that way. And we know, of course, Mass Mania and so on are attempting to capitalize on it. But when you have the primary brand, I think that's something in addition to that you can really utilize. And when it's under TKO's umbrella, there's a lot of opportunity there. And also, I mean, that hopefully that was a one-off thing, but look at the violence in Mexico, and that was like a resort town, right? So it might be good to have the roster being able to travel a bit within reason. Obviously, they'll still be based in Mexico.
Now, is Ring of Honor obviously now owned by AEW, but is Ring of Honor going to be doing studio TV tapings now from Jacksonville?
Yeah, this was really fun and fascinating. They announced it so quick because, I'm sure it's very small in terms of the number of people that you could get in there. But March 1st in Jacksonville at the local PBS studios, which before NWA started doing it, I didn't even know you could rent out PBS for something like that. So I think they're something that's been looking for their fit for quite a while. Since they were acquired by Tony Khan. It's sort of part of AEW, sort of not, but it's kind of like doing it before the TV tapings, and it was fun to see, like at the Hammerstein Ballroom. It doesn't give them their own flavor, and I know that they've done a little bit of not necessarily TV studio, but larger studio tapings in Florida in the past. But I think this is something to try. It's always hard to tell if there's like budget or financial considerations, because sometimes they're willing to take big risks, sometimes not. But I think it's it's something I'm very curious about and really interested to see what comes out of it.
Something that interested me was this Slam Fest during basically WrestleMania weekend at the Palms in Vegas. But is it associated with Paradigm or basically Paragon, I guess? Is that really what's kind of going on here? Is it like all these organizations are coming together outside of GCW, or is it to do with GCW? And as far as, I guess it's Paragon Slamfest, like what is it exactly?
Yeah, sorry, John, I'm a little bit off here. So my spelling, I don't know where I even got Paradigm. It's a good word though. But Paragon.
Paradigm is a associated with CAA.
Okay.
Agency, yeah. Or
I was thinking on a different level. So
agency for clients and stuff like actors, actresses.
Okay. So then that's maybe
that's why I was thinking. I was like, I wonder if Paradigm will be at this Slam Fest.
That would be awesome, right? Like Paragon is one thing, but Mojo Rawley, right? Paragon. So they've been doing a lot, like signing a lot of wrestlers that are associated with WWE. This is going to be more than even these 5 brands at Slamfest, which we'll talk about. But there'll be like the podcasts and different parties. There's no watch party for WrestleMania, as we know this year at the Palms, but there's a lot of opportunity. I think Paragon is something to watch. Like I've noted, like when they have like a newsletter or whatever it is come out sometimes, and they're always up to something, and it's good to see like outside representation of wrestlers and supportive promotions, because it allows for different opportunities and different things. But like I wouldn't be surprised if Brett was aware of this for quite a while, because it's at the Palms. But I think the collective, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, basically the early shows aren't selling so well and the later shows are doing fairly well. but the Sandman's last match against the Invisible Man, it might get overshadowed by all of these brands that are coming together for the show. You have CMLL, Stardom, TJPW, House of Glory, and then Maple Leaf Pro. So I haven't heard anything from Fourth Row, right, for WrestleMania weekend. That seems like something they would do. But just possibilities here. It's well known to fans of independent wrestling that want the alternatives. Joshi Wrestling usually tracks very well. So interesting to see how this goes. If anyone could do it, in terms of running, now that I'm sort of thinking out loud, in terms of running Saudi Arabia, I don't know. Maybe Paragon can do it. They're just well connected and just know how to navigate, these different spaces and environments. Like if anyone's going to do alternative shows, I'm just thinking out loud here. But let's get through Vegas weekend. And it's something certainly to watch. Last year, the tickets were on Ticketmaster, so WrestleTix was able to track them well, the ones collective at the Palms, right? So hopefully these shows will be tracked that way too.
New Japan Pro Wrestling, new beginning in the USA, getting some good coverage out there at the Cure Insurance Arena out there in Trenton, New Jersey. Wish I was going because this show looks good. The card looks good. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what can happen. I know you can watch the New Japan World as well, but what is the latest on the tickets? Because it seemed like I think a success for this show, but maybe I'm wrong. But let me know what you think.
Yeah, so some Fox News coverage and some variety of other coverage as well. Like you mentioned, it's happening the evening that we're taping this, February 27th, a Friday. So according to WrestleTix, 2,170 tickets distributed as of a day prior. The current setup was for 2,900. I think that they had extended the seating a little bit. So, if they sell out or get close, I think this is a win. Like we said, we don't know the financials and how many people they're flying in from Japan and those costs and everything like that. But in today's market, like it isn't like a super top tier card, but it is a rare opportunity to see New Japan in the Northeast, and people want to go. So there's definitely something here, and looking forward to like what the final numbers will be.
So as far as TNA wrestling is concerned, I know they got a lot of stuff coming up. They got Georgia, they got Louisiana coming up, a little bit of a southern tour, and then they'll make their way up to Ohio and different places. But they seem like they're touring kind of more broadly. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it just seems like they're kind of going all over the map. And then they go back up to New York. So it seems like they're kind of going all over the place right now for TNA.
Yeah, I think it's just smart to go places where WWE isn't going for the most part. I don't know if that has translated so well for AEW or TNA at this point in terms of like people being like, oh, okay, I watch WWE. I'm not going to fly to Vegas. They're not coming to my town anytime soon. Let me go to these shows. But I think like if there's places you could go where they're not going, that's always helpful. Gateway Center Arena, College Park, Georgia, March 5th. 1,124 tickets distributed. Current setup of 1,922, 3,462 seats on the map. The next day, 1,150 tickets. Then the Ilario Center on March 27th for Sacrifice and Thursday Night Impact. 678 distributed the first night, 382. So looking shaky there. April 11th. The TNA Rebellion, so that just went on sale. Tickets distributed 847. Similarly, the On Center War Memorial in Syracuse, they're using a fairly small setup. I mean, for a fairly large mid-size arena, and a few rows of tickets are gone. At this point.
MLW's coming up. They got a bunch of tapings, the Fusion TV tapings, of course. They are also returning to Queens and even Philly for a few shows. Give us the latest on some Major League Wrestling.
Yeah, so a fairly busy schedule upcoming for them. Usually when we've seen this the last couple of years. When they announce something, it seems like their schedule is packed, something gets canceled. So we'll have to see if that's the case here as well. But and we have some ticket numbers from WrestleTix. But March 14th, Atlanta, April 12th, Charleston, May 9th, Chattanooga, and then a rare triple shot here. So June 11th, New York, June 12th, Philly, June 13th, Philly, and then later November in Chicago. So Georgia has 475 tickets distributed. They just announced this show in Chattanooga in May. So actually so that was on the schedule there. And then in the Melrose Ballroom, 234 tickets distributed on for the June 11th show.
Coming up for GCW, they've got some interesting shows. Of course, going to Rochester, New York again, which is fascinating because that's kind of Brett's hometown. He was saying that that's going to be an A town for them, so that's interesting that they're doing that. I always thought it was very interesting. They're going back to the old Swanson Rittner, the old ECW arena, the 2300 arena as well. So tell us the latest on what's going on with Game Changer, because maybe it's one night only, but they're doing some interesting towns again here.
Yeah, so Rochester has been a really good market for them, and we were noting that it was a little bit slow to get to this point this time, but it looks like there's a good shot, and this is also happening tonight, a good shot that they'll sell at the 4th and 5th row as well, and then it'll just be GA. So that's pretty good, relatively speaking, for where they are today. They're back at the Ukraine Culture Center again, April 4th, so that's really their A-Town at this point, A-Market and A-Town, and the 2300 Arena, May 2nd. That's really, one of their most marketable and high-profile shows. I was trying to keep track of the tickets, how they're moving, as they just went on sale as of this morning that we're recording. So let me take a look into that. Again, this venue has the MLW shows, Heels Have Eyes. The Heels Have Eyes, by the way, looked like it was selling quite well. Okay, so let's see, quick pick tickets. So thus far, pretty good movement for the first day. Like most of the first 2 rows are gone, and then like some spotting here and there. Not as fast as Milwaukee, but also a bigger venue. The last time they did, one night only. Nick Gage will be returning. They just announced that as well. So their schedule, like we talked about, Rochester tonight, Hartford tomorrow, Louisville, Bloody Show in Kentucky. They said it can be done. March 7th in Columbus, Ohio, the 8th in Chicago. So that's a triple shot. Atlantic City, March 14th and 15th, which has been kind of down a while. Then post Collective, we'll get into the Collective in a minute, the one night only, as we talked about, and then Wildwood announced for June 18th. The Collective, it's interesting that, and it makes sense because their higher profile shows are in and around the dates that WrestleMania are taking place, because otherwise you'd have to be there, several days in advance. But, the Death Vegas, Bloodsport, Spring Break, Big Gay Brunch, JCW, MDK, those sort of shows are, some of them are 7th row, but most of them are at least 4th row, sold out and beyond. And then the ones that are slower, Progress Wrestling, the Super Show, the Hybrid Show, and then there's shows that are not part of the Collective ticket. So Pottermania and Dragon Gate are, more lagging.
As far as the here and there, which is obviously your favorite topic of all time, and maybe mine as well. So there's a lot of random stuff in there, but I'm just fascinated because I'm looking and I'm seeing Fargo, North Dakota, not the show, not the movie, but a wrestling show in Fargo, North Dakota, drew about 1,200 fans. It was the Winter Slam, and it broke the attendance. What is the Winter Slam, and what is going on in Fargo, North Dakota? I didn't even know there was wrestling up there in Fargo. That's amazing.
Yeah, Below Zero Wrestling, they've been doing their things a while, and I'm probably most familiar with it from articles like this in the past. Now I'm curious to see if GCW has gone there as they're checking off their map. But 1,200 people, a 3rd year running, good deal of money for the Special Olympics. it's all good. There's quite a long article that people can look up to get all the details about it, called Winter Slam Breaks Attendance Record for Third Year Running. House of Glory and the big event, the Super Clash, March 21st last year. I think it was, well, no, I don't think it was a full year yet. Whenever they did the last big event in that venue, they had Mercedes Monet, and they did quite well. I think it was sold out, but 317 tickets thus far distributed, 1,165 set up there. TJPW, again, we had talked about how ambitious a show like this was. I don't know. They're less than a month out, March 21st, and there's 496 tickets out in a venue that is more than 6,500 seats wide, and you're coming from Japan. So I know that they have the South by Southwest thing going on and whatever it may be. And then ISPW WrestleTix hasn't had a count for a while, but the Brawl on the Boardwalk show at the Wildwood Convention Center, 819 set up plus GA. At the time it was captured, which is almost 2 weeks ago, it's just 35 tickets. I think something like ISPW is kind of like a later ticket sale, casual fan and so on, but notable because it's going to be the Headbangers. I think their final retirement match. They're doing a retirement tour, but I think this is where it like all culminates.
Yes, and for that, especially Wildwood, usually the summer is when the tickets would really start ramping up. I know we're obviously in the throes of a horrible winter here, so I feel like as soon as summer starts to get warmer, then people make their plans for Wildwood, and then I feel like they'll sell some tickets, because I know they had some good legends there last year, and they saw that sold really well at the same venue. So hopefully all goes well.
How far away is that from you?
About an hour and a half. Almost 2 hours.
Okay,
yeah.
not too close. Okay.
It's weird. You can kind of get there, you're hustling an hour and a half, but it's not as close as I'd like it to be.
Okay. Especially not on a Friday or something like that.
Yes. So basically what you want to do is be already down there vacationing, and then just happen to, just go to the event while you're there on the beach and vacationing and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
that's the best. Like vacations where like you go to stuff that like, I mean, for non-wrestling fans or whatever, like you're somewhere random and you're kind of like, oh, this is happening tonight. You're like, okay, whereas you would never like actually plan to go.
yes, exactly. But I was like, "Ooh, should we go to Wildwood? Should we plan it around?" But we'll see. We'll see what how it shakes down and how everything goes.
Do you
But
know the Headbangers from the scene for a while, or like you've interviewed them? Like
Yep.
how much?
So I've interviewed both of them. I've actually worked with both of them a couple times on some autograph signings. I also interviewed. I know I've interviewed both. But I feel like I've interviewed Mosh 2 or 3 more times than Thrasher, but know them decently well. Big fan of the Headbangers for a long time, actually.
Yeah, they were standout tag team, and like it's surprising that they didn't like sort of stand out even more during the Attitude Era. It seemed like a good connection, but like sort of that transition, I guess they were always trying to find other things for them to do that didn't always work out as well.
Beaver cleavage, not so much.
Yes,
not a great gimmick, that's for sure.
No, but I think we'll see like those like Sisters of Love dolls one day. They're making action figures.
Yeah. They'll put them out. Yeah, that weird nuns gimmick. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, but let's wrap up this bad boy and let's head towards the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Lavie?
Follow me at Lavie Marg, LAVIE MARG, and join our LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business.
Thank you, everybody out there, for tuning in. See you right back here next week for the Business of the Business. See you next week, folks.